Now more of Positive Business on AM 790 with your host, Patricia Raskin. Call 437-5000 or toll free 1-888-345-0790. Now more of Positive Business on AM 790 with Patricia Raskin.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome to our last segment today of Positive Business. I'm Patricia Raskin, and my co-host today is Nancy Thomas. She is president of Tapestry Communications, which is a full-service public relations firm in Rhode Island, and she's a Rhode Island native and really knows the state very well.
Thank
and
you.
is also a good friend. Welcome, Nancy. Glad you're
Patricia.
here. And do want to give a quick shout-out to Gil Antini, who's sick in bed. So, Gil, we love you, and we send you love and kisses and hugs and get well and come back next month. All right, and in the studio we have with us one of my favorites, Brian Lamoureux. He is a partner with Pannone, Lopes, Devereaux, and West. His extensive practice areas include complex commercial litigation, employment law, social media law, receiverships, and creditors' rights. And in addition to being an accomplished business litigator, he has really developed into a nationally recognized voice on cutting-edge legal issues relating to social media. And he's a frequent presenter on lots of television and media outlets, and he's now going to be teaching at Providence College. We're going to hear more about that. Welcome, Brian.
Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, so tell us about this new opportunity.
Oh, sure. This fall I'll be teaching 4 classes of business law at Providence College, which is my alma mater. And I'm just completely thrilled to do that, and grateful to my partners at my firm who are going to help me juggle that and have the flexibility in order to do both. So I'm really happy about that.
Isn't that great?
And even more exciting is the opportunity. I'll be putting together a social media in the business environment course curriculum, which I'm pitching this fall at PC, and hopefully that gets selected, and I'll be offering that next year if I get it through all the right hurdles. So I'm happy to finally combine the love of the law and the love of social media.
Isn't that great?
So it'll be fun.
That's great. And, you know, it's wonderful because you do so much research anyway about cases. I mean, that's just a great thing as a teacher, you know, to bring the case and then let your students talk about it.
Right, and it's a topic that just doesn't get stale. Every 2 weeks, the landscape is shifting in social media law. So it's not something that, is going to go away, nor is it...
It's new, isn't it? It's new.
It's new, and it's evolving because the technology is always so far ahead of the cases that everyone asks me what my prediction will be on this, and I have no pride in saying I know what's going to happen because everything changes so rapidly.
So tell us about a case pending in Ohio where a former employee sued her company and a former coworker.
Sure. Out in Ohio, this woman was working as a sales rep for a very large public company. She left her position, and when she left, she did what mostly everybody does when they leave a job. She cleaned out her desk and handed in her BlackBerry. Well, on that BlackBerry were 2 email accounts, one for her corporate account and one for her personal Gmail account.
And she didn't think about erasing that.
She did not delete or otherwise deactivate the personal account.
Which she could have done, correct? Legally.
She could have done, absolutely. And she claims in her lawsuit that it was the practice of this employer to allow employees to put their personal email on their corporate device.
Okay.
And that's not abnormal, and I don't think that's completely wrong or problematic. But unfortunately for her, when the person she turned the device into, according to her, kept the device, and over the course of months, read 48,000 of her personal emails. And she's alleged that breached privacy laws.
You think?
Breached the Federal Stored Communications Act.
Wow.
And she claims that those emails had personal details relating to her health and her personal life. And the case is really just in its infancy. There's been really nothing major that's happened in the case. But what is interesting is it shows some of the traps that are out there for employers when they have departing employees.
Right. And we were talking before we went on air about a university that I did not Providence College, by the way, because I'm a proud alum, and none of the technology existed back then, but where they did that, they issued BlackBerries, and they would do things like check your GPS, because people were supposed to be on the road, making appointments and whatever, and so you said that you were in so many places, and then they were actually getting GPS readings on your mileage.
Wow.
And all your copies of all your emails went to your boss and to the HR department. This apparently was legal. We were told anyway it was legal. But when staff started to become aware of it, we did things like you left their BlackBerry in your desk, so it should, if anybody's looking for you, you're at your desk, and you used your own private phone for anything private. And I don't know where the law stands on that now. I mean, even with email accounts on a laptop or a desktop.
Yeah, it's a pretty clear question, actually. Just because something is legal doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Right.
So we can divorce the two between the legality. So generally speaking, the employer can own whatever they want, and they can do whatever they want with what they own. They can own my iPhone, and they can dictate the terms of what I can or can't do on that iPhone. Same thing with your networks. I'm sure virtually every employer listening to this show, if they have a written data policy, has something that says, we own the network. Everything you do on the network is subject to monitoring. We can look at anything you do on the network. That's legal, and that's okay, because you're warning and you're telling your employees that you should not have any expectation of privacy using our network. Whether that's a good idea is a whole other story, because I can imagine what type of chilling effect that policy had on, frank communications.
Absolutely.
Here's my question. I mean, I know my opinion, but your opinion on this, if you want to give it, I mean, it would seem to me that this woman is within her rights to say that employer should not have opened up all of those emails and read them. What is your opinion, Brian?
I think the story that I've heard so far through reading the court file, and I think this is a very credible response by the employee. I think the employee's position is going to be, I was reading the emails to make sure there was continuity in her position and that nothing work-related skipped through. On its face, I think that's a very plausible defense. But there's a point that I think the company may run into trouble after 1,000 emails, after 2,000 emails. So I think the volume of this is what caught the news wire, that someone's reading 48,000 emails.
How did that get out, and how did she know that they read all those?
I think she claims that she learned it through, I think, either emails were showing up as read on her new phone. There was some technical way she learned that this was happening. She immediately changed her password. And she also claims, and I think this is the part that's tricky, she claims that not only did this person allegedly read the emails, but he disclosed the contents to others. So it was a two-step process. In my opinion, I frankly think that our employees these days have a very blurred sense of where the privacy line is, because the devices they use make it so easy for them to think that everything's private. And these devices are blurring the difference between personal and private.
Right.
On my phone, I have two inboxes. I have work and I have personal. But if you look at the trend of devices, like, for example, the new Facebook skin that is overlaid on some devices, Facebook is integrated virtually in every app. So there's a blurred line there. BlackBerry, to their credit, is doing a great job in trying to create devices and platforms where there is a wall between personal and private. There are some BlackBerry devices going to come out that will allow you to basically swipe between your personal side of things and your work side. So the technology is trying to catch up with this blurred problem that I see.
I have a friend who works for USAID in Afghanistan, and they only have BlackBerries because of the security device, so that it's less. They certainly can't use, and they're told not to put anything personal on it, and use their personal iPhone for calls and for emails, and everything is protected. So apparently, in other countries, BlackBerry is the technology of choice in anything that has to do with military or things that need to be kept secret. I know in the university I was talking about, it was Outlook was the email server, and they went to check to see if somebody had read their email, and that they had intended to read the email, and then they found these other people had read it. So that's how and then all of a sudden the whole university found out about it. So is a house of cards.
Well, what I want to do is I want to get into this more after the break, but what I'd like you to address is what employers should keep in mind in light of this case. So just tell us one thing before the break.
Sure. Well, first of all, they should have some policy, preferably written and clear, that says who owns what on the device and what happens when an employee either gets terminated or quits. That's the first thing. They need to have some clear lines about, and a protocol to follow, that this is who you give the device to. Yeah. This is what happens. Right. This is how we'll wipe it. This is your opportunity to get the data. So
this would have never happened if they had had a policy.
Well, they may have had a policy, and I think they did have a policy, but I'm not sure the policy permitted someone to read personal emails. And there's a sliding line between checking to see if there was a legitimate business need to check the emails, and then crossing it to where a reasonable person or a jury will say you crossed the line.
So let's say that they did cross the line, the employer. What happens for the employee? Is there a monetary compensation? I mean, is that what happens?
Yeah, I don't know Ohio law very well because I just know what I read in her complaint, but she's suing for a violation of her privacy, and basically a jury can award whatever they think her damages has been. She's suing for punitive damages to punish the company for having this done. So,
is she listing an amount?
No lawsuit. No lawyer ever wants to list an amount because then you set your ceiling. So you want.
Was it a rogue employee who did this so that they could come back? The employer could actually come back against their own employee?
Yeah, I think that the employer will arguably say that the employee acted outside the scope of his authority, and we have a policy against this. And that's probably going to be a very compelling defense.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more to Brian Lamoureux about this recent case pending in Ohio, and it's a social media law case. And Brian is an attorney and partner with Pannone, Lopes, Devereaux, and West right here in Rhode Island. So stay tuned, folks. You're listening to Positive Business. I'm Patricia Raskin with my co-host today, Nancy Thomas. And Nancy is president of Tapestry Communications, which is a public relations firm in Rhode Island. We're here on AM 790. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Hi, everyone. We're back. You're listening to Positive Business, and I'm Patricia Raskin right here on AM 790. My co-host today is Nancy Thomas, and she's president of Tapestry Communications, a public relations firm in Rhode Island. And we have with us in the studio Brian Lamoureux, who is a partner with Pannone, Lopes, Devereaux, and West. And he is a nationally recognized voice on cutting-edge legal issues related to social media. Frequent presenter and published author and broadcaster on the topic of social media, and about to be a professor at Providence College in the area of
business law.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
My alma mater.
Yes, great to have you
And for
on.
those full professors out there at PC, let me clarify, adjunct assistant professor, because they earned that title and I just got mine.
Okay. Before we go on to this case, I asked a question during the break, and you said, great question, ask it on the air, and that is, when you text someone and you delete it, is it deleted?
And the reason I wanted you to ask it now is because I want to give you the lawyerly answer, which I always hate to give, but it depends. And it depends on your carrier. In 2010, I believe the Electronic Frontier Foundation raised a stink about this, and they surveyed or queried all of the major carriers to find out how long do you keep your text. And some carriers like AT&T don't keep texts. So virtually instantaneously when it's disappeared, it's gone. There are some, I think T-Mobile keeps it maybe for 72 hours, but don't quote me on any of that because the data is 2 years old. But generally speaking, texts do not last a long time. So that's why in law enforcement, you see them move with much rapidity because these things roll off the servers and the towers and wherever they're stored.
And can they use it? Can you use it legally? Just like, if somebody was tapping someone's phone, could you use those texts?
If it's obtained legally through legal means by either warrant or otherwise, certainly law enforcement can use whatever they lawfully get. But people are very much surprised to learn that texting is, I say all the time, everything lasts forever. This is really one of the exceptions. Texting tends to disappear in the ether, which makes sense because it's so much data, and much of it is useless. Companies don't want to be paying to keep what you and I may text about. It just doesn't, there's really no upside to that. And I think, frankly, the public enjoys the fact that texting is not permanent.
Yeah. I'm not sure this is a business topic, but I would like you to address not just texting, but sexting.
Sure. It's important because it's coming up in the employment context. There are cases involving harassment that are happening through texting and through Facebook. Because years ago, my clients used to deal with sexual harassment by walking the halls and talking to people. Now they just get Facebook printouts slid under their door over the weekend saying, here, this is what you need to look into. There's an app out there called Snapchat, and if anyone's listening who hasn't heard of it, they should research it, especially if they have children. What Snapchat is, it's a very popular app used by primarily people in their teens and younger to allow them to send pictures and videos to someone else who has the app. And the video and picture self-destructs basically after 10 seconds or less on the other person's phone. So if you and I both had Snapchat, I could snap a picture and send it to you, and you could only view it for whatever I set that time period to be on your device. And if you snap a picture of it yourself on your phone, because you can do a screenshot on your iPhone, I would get a message that you've done that. So I am warned that Patricia is in the habit of saving what are supposed to be these impermanent Snapchats. The problem with Snapchat, and I've talked to high school kids and I've talked to 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, is two things. One, someone, of course, has figured out a way to recover deleted Snapchats. So there is a way on an iPhone to uncover these things that were supposed to be unrecoverable. But you should have seen the mouths drop on the high school kids when I said to them, well, putting that aside, what's to stop someone else who has a device right next to the one you've Snapchatted to from taking a picture of the other device? And their mouths dropped because they never really thought that, holy cow, someone could have two devices. So Snapchat is interesting for those parenting teens. And for, it hasn't come across in my employment practice, but I think it's just a matter of time. Texting is the one that comes up primarily in my employment practice with, he said, she said.
So be careful of Snapchat is what you're saying.
I am.
Yeah. Wow. Ooh. All right. Back to this case in Ohio, and just again give us a brief synopsis for those people just tuning in, and really kind of where we are with it.
Sure. There's a case pending in Ohio federal court where a woman who used to work for a large company left her employment and left behind her phone that she used for personal and private email, personal and professional email, and the person she turned the phone into read 48,000 of her personal emails from her Gmail account. She has sued him and the company, claiming that that violated her privacy. One of the things that most employers who run what is called an enterprise system, which is a fancy name for a unified email system, is that allows them to give them rather complete control over a device. So if I was to leave my firm today, my IT department could send a signal to my iPhone and basically wipe it so that every piece of data on there is gone. And so I would urge any employer listening to know, under an IT department protocol, what would they do if they learned that one of their employees quit and just left and went to a competitor and still had the device that had who knows what on it? Do you have the ability to control that by either wiping it remotely? What protocol do you have in place to ensure that that ex-employee who may have left under bad circumstances isn't walking around with your private data to a competitor? The other thing that I think employers really should give some thought to is making sure their employees know that if the company owns the device, the company owns everything on the device. And just like their computer system in their office, there's no expectation of privacy on the device. That way, if someone does install their personal email, they will have at least had a warning that what is done on there is not necessarily private.
So you would suggest somebody has their own phone for their own personal use?
In a perfect world, as an employment lawyer, I would love to see people have 2 devices.
Right.
I know that's not practical, and I know that's never going to be advice that people follow. But I would love to see people have their work phone and their personal phone. But that's unrealistic these days.
I always suggest that too. And having had that experience and worked in a culture where they had that, and you saw people carrying 2 devices around. And I think that gives you a certain amount of protection. And same with people started bringing in their own laptops, so they wouldn't even say they had AOL as a personal email. They wouldn't pull it up on their computer. They would bring their own laptop. Then they were concerned, is the server picking it up? So it was this they created this ultra sort of big brother who's reading and who's looking type of atmosphere.
Right, for sure. And the last piece of advice, if you deal with any sensitive data as an employer, whether you're in the healthcare field, the legal field, the consulting field, I think it's malpractice if your employees are not required to password protect their phone. So very simply, your employees should be obligated, if they're using a company device, to have a password protected phone. That way, if they leave it behind at a bar somewhere, no one can start scrolling through it. They have to at least try to scroll through it.
Okay. Brian, it's always great information. Always great to have you on. I know you'll be back on in August. And thanks so much. How can people write to you or get a hold of you?
Easiest way to get me is follow me on Twitter at Brian Attorney, or they can call the office at 824-5100.
All right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being on it. Nancy, thanks for co-hosting today.
Thank
and
you
also
so
being
much.
A guest.
I enjoyed it. It's my first little gig here.
Yeah, it was fun and great. And again, Gil Lantini, get better. And next week we will have Toonie Shartner, who will be our co-host. And we have Mike Cooley, who you brought to me, Nancy.
Oh, Mike is coming on.
CEO of Quinlan Companies and author of Rock Bottom, From the Streets to Success.
Great.
And Catherine and Bill White from Avogenics. And Terry Murray, who's a business executive. And Michael Connealy, who's with the detective agency in New Hampshire. So remember, stay healthy, stay happy, get the support you need, and know you can make your dreams come true. Until next time, I'm Patricia Raskin for Positive Business right here on AM 790. Have a great week, folks.